Welcome to Smash University. Today I'll be going over a hazards on stage proposal for competitive play. This is something I've been advocating for quite some time and I just want to make a video on it. The main things I'll be going over in this video is the current problems we have with the stage list that we use right now and what hazards on kind of brings to the table and what it can fix with these current issues that we have with the current stage list we use for competitive play. I also made a video on how to counterpick. I highly recommend watching that video before watching this video so you kind of understand what really impacts a stage in terms of competitive play, because there's so many different factors going into thinking about a stage list, and knowing more about like how to counterpick or what impacts a stage is very, very important when discussing these kinds of things. And if you guys have been enjoying the content so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Smash University so you can check out more content like this. So let's get started. All right, so to start things off, my problem with the current stage list right now, one of them, I have like about 3 problems with the current stage list. One of them is there's too much stages. Right here, this stage list is from Smashville Tour, and we have 9 stages. So 9 stages with 2 bands and modified DSR. The thing is, once you start getting into too much stages, and this was going to bridge right into my next issue with the stage list, is so when you have too many stages, then you start having duplicates or like very similar stages. And then like for me, I kind of think like, what's the point? We kind of get a little bit of variety, but like when you have Yoshi's Story and Battlefield, those are 2 triplat stages. And then we also have Small Battlefield and PS2, which is 2 double platform stages. There is some very small differences, but the reason why Small Battlefield got added to this stage list in the first place is because we have doubles of everything, or not everything, but like we have a double triplat, which I think was an issue since Smash 4. Now you have 2 stage bands, so you can get rid of both triplats, but I think it's better to just simplify the stage list and just have one of each, in my opinion. Even with Final Destination, we have Final, Town, and Kalos. Now Town is actually kind of like Final, but it transforms, right? So you kind of have half of a Final Destination. And then Kalos is like Final Destination in a sense of when you're fighting center stage, it is very similar. Now Kalos has differences with the walls, and disadvantage is a little different. And when you're playing neutral at the corner, it's different because projectile characters or just characters in general can have another place to run away to, being the platform, right? And that's very, very strong. But in terms of like center stage neutral, Final Destination and Kalos are very similar, and Town can also be very similar depending on the transformation, and around half the time it's Final Destination. So now you see where this is all kind of snowballing to a point where we have very similar stages and we have more bands to compensate for it, but then it like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And then you have the oddballs like Lilat and Smashville, which are different. But my last problem with the current stages is actually Smashville itself. Now Smashville is the smallest stage, right? Now this stage list is very beneficial for projectile characters, so naturally you want to take a projectile character to a smaller stage so you can engage them more and they have less room to run away. Now this whole entire stage list it's pretty much a lot of big stages. But Smashville, since the platform does not move, Smashville has the strongest center stage in the game. When you control center stage on Smashville, it doesn't even really matter how big the stage is or small the stage is, because it is the smallest stage. It doesn't really matter because the platform doesn't move. So any projectile character that has strong horizontal zoning can just sit underneath the platform, and they're going to force you to approach them horizontally. Now you can try to come on the platform and then drop down underneath it, but since there is no shield dropping in this game, putting yourself on a platform is usually not good. So it makes this very like volatile stage list where you can try to take a zoner or a projectile character with horizontal zoning to Smashville, but sometimes it doesn't work like that. Just because the stage is small, the center stage control is so volatile on Smashville that with hazards off, I just don't like the fact that the small stage, like this should be the counter pick to projectile characters, but it doesn't work like that with Hazards On because of the base game mechanics and the platform not moving. So with Hazards On, as you can see, I have Smashville here, and right, you know, that single platform I was talking about, the avenue of approaches are usually very horizontal, like we're seeing here. And yeah, I think with Hazards On, you solve the Smashville problem because now the platform moves. Does this speed the game up because there are characters that can do platform carry combos? Yes. Is speeding up the game a problem? In my opinion, no. I generally think that the faster the game, in terms of like stock taking and stuff, I think it's fine, because you also have to take into account, you know, the spectator part of it. Now, you don't hyper focus on the spectator part. That is a factor. The main factor is competition, and you want it to just be like generally fair. But it definitely, with the platforms moving, it can speed up the game. It's your job as the player to know where the platform is moving. So if you get platform carried, that's your fault for losing neutral or overextending in a certain part where you can get punished by specific characters. But yeah, it really changes the whole dynamic. Like, this stage with Hazards On is so different, and it, like, some characters can try to camp when the platform extends this way, but once it starts coming back, they're like in a platform scenario, which is really bad in this game because there's no shield dropping. It's very different from Smash 4, because in Smash 4 you could stay camp on the platform and then shield drop punish. You cannot do that in this game. So when the platform comes back, you have to deal with your opponent. Now, the reason why we can't even do Hazards On is because of Small Battlefield. With Small Battlefield coming out, where is Small Battlefield? Now, Small Battlefield, we have Small Battlefield so we can have a double platform and replace Pokemon Stadium 2, right? So Small Battlefield is a bit bigger, or no, smaller. Small Battlefield is smaller than Pokemon Stadium 2, which I think is actually better. So now we're introducing a smaller stage, but it's still double platform. Without Small Battlefield, I would never propose a Hazards On stage list. So, you know, this alone makes it very, very possible. Now, to get into my actual stage list, the stage list I would propose is Small Battlefield, Battlefield, Final Destination, Town and City, Smashville. Those would be the starters, and then you add the 6th stage counter pick, which would be Fountain. You could also add Northern Cave, but now this is where it's kind of like a 50-50 like decision making in terms of just like it depends on the TO and stuff like that. But I personally think Kalos and Northern Cave are a bit like, it definitely slows down the game, and it definitely gives me vibes like Duck Hunt vibes from Smash 4, where I've seen players, and let me pull up Kalos, I've seen players like camp here and then they have like a burst of horizontal mobility, something like Wario Bike or Bouncing Fish, and some characters are just too slow, and then I've seen camping like bouncing back and forth between these two platforms. That's not good for competition, just straight up. Like, we banned Duck Hunt because, I mean, Duck Hunt was worse than this. You had like the tree and you could cheese people on it and people would just camp on the tree, and some characters couldn't even get up there. Definitely not as bad as Duck Hunt, but can do similar strategies, you know, but on a toned down level. So I generally don't think that's good. And I also think Kalos, the center stage fighting is just too similar to FD. And then on top of that, you have Town. So you have already like Town, Kalos, and Final Destination, where the center stage neutral is so similar. And I think with Hazards On, you can fix that and just get rid of Kalos. Obviously, if you don't agree with this opinion, you still have the option of just adding Northern Cave. Northern Cave does bring in some interesting factors. The platforms aren't, they're a little bit more in than Kalos, right? So Kalos, the platforms are a little bit farther out, whereas in Northern Cave, it's a little farther in. But with Northern Cave, you actually bring in a stage that has a lower ceiling than average. Most stages have an average or a very high ceiling. This one has a little lower than average, so that's a nice little niche it has. With a 6-stage list, I would go with one ban with modified DSR. All right, so with Fountain of Dreams, we get rid of the double triplat problem, right? And if you also cut Northern Cave / Kalos, you have one like open flat stage being Final Destination, right? And then you also just have that plus town. So town will be kind of final, but not really. And then I think fountain fulfills the same purpose that town fulfills. Fountain is like battlefield, but not really, because it transforms. There's a bunch of different transformations. So fountain is kind of like half of a battlefield, and so is town being like half of a final destination. And I think that's fine in this stage list, and plus it just looks really dope. I think fountain is a very iconic stage, and if we can use it, I think that's, you know, just beneficial in general. Plus, in terms of just competition, it makes sense. So all the problems I listed before, I think you can also solve with a hazards off stage list. Pretty much the main things you would do is you would switch PS2 with small battlefield, and you would switch Fountain of Dreams with Lilat. So a 6-stage list. Lilat is a triplat, but a very different variant of a triplat, right? You also have the slants as well. I just generally think a smaller stage list is better, just because you don't run into the problem of like, oh, there's doubles of every stage list, but then there's not doubles of this, so what do we do, right? So I think that's the main issue with the current stage list, where we have like doubles or kind of sort of triples, right? Or like like 3 like super open stages, and then 2 triplats, 2 double plats, and then after that it's like, well, we don't have 2 Smashvilles and we don't have 2 Lilats, right? And then it's like this really weird dynamic that I personally don't like, and I think, you know, is not as consistent. But yeah, I think you can pretty much solve the same problems with the hazards off. It's just, I think Fountain of Dreams is just better for competition. I really hate Lilat, so I think Lilat for competition, like, this stage has literally robbed people of wins, like, just from being jank. Like, oh, your recovery didn't work. Like, that, to me, that is the utmost, like, that's just the dumbest shit for competition, like, just straight up. It makes no fucking sense, and, like, I think people getting hype over just, like, the stage not working, like, that's not true competitive spirit. Like, if someone's gonna win, they should, you know, outplay their opponent, or their opponent messes up, but not because the stage didn't, like, work. And, you know, Lilat is notorious for doing that. It doesn't do it a ton, but it has done it before, and I think that's already enough to, like, affect its competitive integrity. So I think Fountain of Dreams is a better path to go with the hazards on path.
So they have fixed most of the frame dropping issues on FOD, but one thing to mention is that there is still one minor one with Wario's bike. When it's zoomed in and he hits something and he's turning his bike, it will drop some frames. Like right there, it dropped a little bit of frames. Do I think this is as bad as something like Lilat killing people off of the stage not working because they're recovering to the ledge and they lose their stock for it? I don't think it's that bad comparatively. Even with this minor frame drop issue for like this one specific character doing one specific thing with bike that you usually don't do anyway, like most people don't turn with the bike, they use it as like a recovery tool. I think this is a very niche scenario, and I don't think this is enough to like not use the stage. And like we've used worse things, like I said, with Lilat and people not being able to recover, which is a way bigger deal than Wario turning on his bike when the camera's close up and he gets a hit with it. So I think it's a very niche specific scenario, but I know with this stage being legalized before, frame dropping was an issue, so I do think it's something worth going over and mentioning. If there is any more frame dropping issues, you know, with different scenarios, please let me know in the comments below.
Alright, so that's my take on stage lists in terms of hazards on or hazards off. Whether you agree with me or not, I hope you guys enjoy the content. I think these kinds of discussions are very healthy, but at the same time, I think the Smash community, they go into these discussions being very, like, not so informed about stages, and they have a bunch of arguments. So I think the main thing when discussing these kinds of topics is making sure you're informed about stages and knowing how different stages affect the meta. And yeah, I think it's just a very healthy discussion in general. I do think hazards on should be at least tested, but we'll see. It's always hard for TOs to be the TO that tries out something new. But yeah, I think as long as there's reasoning behind it, that's the main thing. But if you guys like the content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Class dismissed.